1 girl dead, 2 boys accused, and 3 families at war. And the secret behind it all that has never been told until now. Buckle up, my friends, for the incredible true story of Bertha Hood. Our story begins in 1930 in Wise County, Virginia, in a small rural community known as Big Stone Gap. It was tucked deep in the Cumberland Mountains and straddled between steep ridges and winding hollers where dense forests towered into smoky blue heavens. The region was rich in coal and iron, so rich that folks used to say a man could dig almost anywhere and strike a vein. And right in the heart of it all laid a bustling railroad hub where several major lines intersected, with their iron rails stretching towards the outside world. All day and night, the whistles of locomotives echoed through the valley, bouncing off the mountains like rolling thunder, as those trains hauled countless tons of black coal that fed the industries of far-off cities like Cincinnati and Baltimore, places that most mountaineers had only heard of on the radio. But those rails carried more than freight. They also carried people, a steady stream of newcomers who stepped off the trains each week, spilling into Big Stone Gap with wide eyes and high hopes. Some were mountain folks from other parts of Appalachia, families who, for the first time in their life, left behind their self-sufficient pioneer ways and stepped into the promise of steady paychecks, believing that coal camps and rail yards offered a better future for their families. Others were outsiders entirely and rolled in on the iron horse from Kentucky and Tennessee and even places as far away as Ohio and Pennsylvania. They came chasing opportunity or running from secret past, hoping for a clean slate and a chance to reinvent themselves. That's right, Big Stone Gap was bursting at the seams, part mountain village, part industrial crossroads. And because of that strange, powerful mixture, many folks proudly called this place the Pittsburgh of the South. It was here that a man named William Hood ran a local general store and served as its postmaster. Now, these were 2 positions that made him one of the most familiar faces in all of Big Stone Gap. His store sat near the crossroads, with its porch lined with wooden crates and flour barrels. Inside, the place smelled of coffee beans, dried apples, and the faint tang of coal smoke drifting in from the rail yard. Mr. Hood was more than just a businessman. In fact, he was the kind of man that folks pointed to when they spoke about integrity. He owned a good bit of acreage in the community, and it was on this farm that he and his wife had lovingly raised a passel of young'uns. William was a God-fearing man who lived by the good book, and if you were looking for the Hood family, you knew exactly where to find them, sitting together on the same wooden pew down at the Methodist church every Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday prayer meeting. To say that he was respected, well, that's an understatement, because folks didn't just admire him, they leaned on him. And in those days, long before the government ever offered help to struggling families, his store was a godsend for those who had fallen on hard times. He knew that a miner's paycheck would vanish in an instant if a piece of slate fell and crushed a leg, or if the company shut down a section of the mine without notice. And each time that happened, William never waited for folks to come asking. He would load up sacks of flour, beans, and sugar into the back of his truck and deliver it himself to families whose fathers were out of work or bedridden from injuries. He even kept a special corner of the store stocked with children's shoes. And if he heard of a youngster who showed up to school barefooted, he quietly made sure that they got new shoes. No charge and no questions asked. In his eyes, the Lord had blessed him richly, and a blessing, well, it was meant to be shared with those who needed just a little help. And that's the kind of man William Hood was. Now, as much as William loved his 6 children, perhaps none were closer to his heart than 15-year-old Bertha Hood. She was a daddy's girl through and through, a true Southern belle who could light up a room simply by stepping inside. Bertha was blessed with a quick mind, and her teachers saw it early on. She was already a senior at East Stone Gap High School, a couple of years younger than most of her classmates. Yet, she held her own with ease. Book learning, well, it just came natural to her. But Bertha wasn't just smart. She was the kind of girl that folks couldn't help but notice. She had a warm, magnetic spirit that drew people in with her infectious smile. And she had a way of making friends wherever she went. So it wasn't long before she became one of the most popular students in the entire school. And then there was her beauty that attracted a swarm of hopeful young fellas who trailed behind her like broken-hearted puppies. With her dark brown hair and clear bright eyes, Bertha didn't have to do a thing to command attention. Simply put, she was the kind of mountain girl that boys dreamed about courting, and some of them went to downright foolish lengths just to earn a look or a kind word from her. But for her part, Bertha paid little mind to such things. After all, her heart and her time were already spoken for. Between schoolwork, helping her mama around the house, and her strong involvement in the Methodist Church youth group, the young teen stayed much too busy to entertain the notions of puppy love. That's right, Bertha was focused on her faith and full of dreams for the bright future that everyone believed she had waiting. A picture-perfect world, right? Well, not so fast, my friend, because even in a small town, trouble, well, it can hide in plain sight. And when a girl is as beautiful as Bertha Hood was, some will secretly obsess over her. And hearts, well, we all know they can twist in dangerous ways. You see, there are some who can't handle rejection, and some who believe that if they couldn't have her, no one could. And what happens next would rock this small Appalachian town, and soon even the mountains would cry out for vengeance. Click the link below to order the brand new book, Appalachia's Deadliest, and ride shotgun with some of the baddest outlaws in Appalachian history. The trouble all started on November 2nd, 1930. It was a Sunday, and a quiet one at that, on the Hood homestead. After church that morning, and a simple supper that evening, the family settled into their usual routines. Around 6 p.m., once the dishes were put away, young Bertha slipped on her coat and set out walking towards the Methodist church for a youth group meeting. Now, back in those days, paved roads were few and far between in Wise County. Most paths were nothing more than dirt ruts that turned into thick mud whenever it rained and kicked up blinding dust when it didn't. Because of that, it was common for folks to travel by way of the railroad tracks. After all, they ran straight, were easy to follow, and kept a person's Sunday clothes from getting filthy. So Bertha, not wanting to dirty her dress, stepped onto the tracks and headed off towards the church. But unbeknownst to her family, that soft November evening would be the last time anyone ever saw Bertha Hood alive. Hours passed. Darkness settled heavy over the mountains when Bertha still hadn't returned home. Mr. Hood, he grew uneasy. He first checked with a couple of neighbors, but no one had seen her. So he made a quick trip down to the church, which confirmed his worst fear. Bertha never even made it to the meeting. "Something about this is bad wrong," William muttered to his wife. "Something's happened. I just know it." By 8:30 p.m., William and several neighbors fanned out across the East Stone Gap with their lanterns in hand, calling Bertha's name into the cold darkness. Midnight came and went, and then sunrise. The men had checked with all of her friends, but there was nothing. It was almost as if Bertha had stepped off the face of the earth. Rumors began swirling as news spread of the girl's disappearance, Everyone knew that there was a handful of boys who had sweetheart eyes for Bertha. But then word surfaced that two had gotten into a heated fist fight earlier that very week because one of them had walked Bertha home from school. Their names were Shorty Hopkins and Roy Runyons, two boys from Wildcat Valley who were well known for their hot tempers. And then someone mentioned seeing both boys walking with Bertha the night before, and they were arguing again. And that was all William Hood needed to hear. It was barely daylight, but William Hood stormed onto the front porch of the Runyons farmhouse, determined to find the truth. Now, Roy was just 15 years old, and he was still asleep when William arrived. His father, Frank Runyons, answered the door, swearing up and down that his boy had been home in the bed since 8:30 the previous night. "Or Mr. Hood, I'm sorry about your gal and all, but my boy didn't have nothing to do with this girl being missing," Frank insisted. But William Hood wasn't buying it. He demanded to speak to the boy himself, and the moment Roy shuffled into the kitchen, he was pale and wide-eyed, and William sensed that something was wrong. Roy just couldn't keep his story straight. He changed his account of the night 3 different times before finally admitting that he had seen Bertha walking along the railroad tracks. That was enough for William. He didn't know exactly what had happened, but he knew that this boy knew more than he was telling. So in a bold, desperate act, fueled by fatherly instinct, William Hood pulled his pistol and cocked it. "Mr. Runyons, I'm sorry, but I'm taking your boy with me, and we'll let him tell this story to the law." And with that, William Hood marched the trembling teen 3 long miles to the Wise County Sheriff's Office at gunpoint. But hold on now. All the while William was dragging Roy towards justice, a horrifying discovery was being made on the other side of town. At that very same moment, a railroad section hand had been reported for work at a small Southern Railway tool house. He was completely unaware that half the county had been out all night searching, and just as he stepped onto the property, something caught his eye. There in the underbrush beside the tracks was a scrap of fabric, and it looked like it might be a dress. Curious, he stepped closer, and in that instant, a horror washed over him. There, laying face down in the cold November dirt, was the still body of Bertha Hood. She had been shot with a single bullet straight through the heart. Wagon tongue set the hills of Wise County on fire, and it wasn't long before deputies had hauled in Shorty Hopkins as well. And just like Roy, Shorty swore up and down that he didn't know a thing. I got nary a thing to do with this. I don't know nothing, I tell you. Y'all got the wrong person." Now, Shorty and Roy both came from well-to-do families, folks with money, land, and political pull, and they wasted no time using it. Within hours, the Hopkins and the Runyons families marched into the sheriff's office with $3,000 cash to post bail, and with hate in their eyes, they vowed to hire the most powerful attorneys in the Commonwealth of Virginia to protect their boys. So here it was, a 15-year-old girl dead, 2 15-year-old boys as the only suspects, and not a soul in Wise County knew who had pulled the trigger. But one thing was certain, the battle lines were drawn, and 3 powerful families were now locked in a fight for their children's futures, and all hell was about to break loose. Just 3 days after her murder, the entire senior class of East Stone Gap High School served as pallbearers at Bertha's funeral as thousands of people came to pay their respect. Yet, after she was buried, an anger swept through that crowd. They demanded justice. Now, mountain men have long held a suspicion and an inherent distrust of the judicial system. They had seen men who were guilty in the court of public opinion walk scot-free out of that courthouse time and time again. And for that reason, a mob of mountain men, armed with Winchesters and Colt pistols, set out for both Roy Runyons and Shorty Hopkins' homes, and they vowed to extract vengeance. However, the sheriff was well aware of the plot and he just barely beat the mountaineers to the boys' homes, where he once again arrested and jailed both of them, this time to save their lives. And there they would remain. As the months went on, lawyers for the boys wrangled and stalled the trial with countless motions until finally Judgment Day came on April 16th of 1931, before one of the largest crowds to ever witness a trial in Virginia history. The courtroom was packed with no standing room in the hallways as the crowd spilled onto the courthouse lawn. And there, for the next 2 days, a real-life courtroom battle unfolded as the top legal minds for the prosecution and the defense jostled for the upper hand to prove their case. William Hood was the first to take the stand, and there he defended his daughter's honor and her innocence. She had never had a relationship with any boy, especially not with these two, he contended. Then Shorty took the stand, and in a plea deal, he testified for the prosecution against Roy. And in exchange, the charges against him were dropped. He told of Roy's violent temper and his obsession with Bertha. Then, 5 months after the crime, Roy Runyons finally took the stand in his own defense, where he broke his silence on what he claimed really happened that night. And that night, I saw Bertha walking. She was walking with Shorty Hopkins towards the church. And when he saw me coming, he disappeared into the woods. So I approached Bertha, and she saw that I had a pistol in my belt. The only reason I had it is I'd been target practicing earlier that day. But for some reason, she kept reaching for my gun, even though I told her not to. I couldn't stop her. And before I knew it, she had managed to grab the pistol, and she started taking the bullets out of it. Well, I guess she thought she had taken them all out, and then she started to hand the gun back to me, when all of a sudden, it fired. I swear to you, it was an accident. I didn't shoot Bertha Hood. I loved her. I swear it's the truth. Was this an accident where a young boy panicked and ran instead of telling the truth? Or was it a crime of passion? It was now in the hands of the jury to decide, and it wouldn't take long to find out, because just 25 minutes later, they returned with a verdict. We, the jury, find Roy Runyons guilty of first-degree murder, and we recommend a sentence of 20 years in the Virginia State Penitentiary. Hey guys, JD Phillips here from the Appalachian Storyteller, and we're on location in Claxton, Tennessee with a follow-up to the story you just listened to. First, let me explain something. Many of the stories that I tell on this channel are actually sent to me by families who are looking to solve old mysteries or unsolved crimes from their family's history. And the story of Bertha Hood is no different. You see, Bertha's ancestors actually sent this story to me, and there were some questions and rumors and legends in their family about what actually became of Roy Runyons after he was convicted of Bertha's murder. So, you see, they actually believe or suspect that he may not have spent much time, if any at all, in prison for the crime that he was convicted of. And there was been legends in their family for decades that what actually happened was William Hood, Bertha's father, actually had Roy Runyons killed after he was released from prison. So what I had to do with this story is determine what happened to Roy. And like the Hood family, I don't believe he spent much time at all in prison. The newspapers literally just stopped. It was like he fell off the face of the earth. But I finally tracked him down. He was convicted in 1931. However, in 1935, I found him in Harlan, Kentucky, where he registered for the United States military draft. His draft card, I found it. And it stated that he was from Big Stone Gap, where this story took place, and it uses his mother's name, which was his mother in the story. And later on, I found his death records with his father's name from this story in it, so I know that it was him. So anyways, I find him in 1935 in Harlan, Kentucky. He's working for U.S. Steel. And then, just a few years later, he moved south to Tennessee, where he was working at the Oak Ridge National Lab. Ironically, the top security facility that they were using to make the atomic bomb. He was working as a maintenance director there, where he would live for the rest of his life. Got married, had a family, and just disappeared, reinvented himself. And there he was all the way until 1972 when he died, and he donated his body to science. Now, here he is, right here. His family had this bench put here in the cemetery just a few short miles from where he lived the rest of his life after being convicted of that crime against Bertha Hood. Wow, what a story. Did Roy take the secret with him to the grave? Was it truly an accident? And as a 15-year-old kid, he simply panicked? Or was this cold-blooded murder? As for Bertha Hood, a beautiful young girl with her entire life ahead of her, well, her story was like a book with all the pages ripped from it. We'll never know where life would have taken her as she was tragically taken away on that fateful night in 1930. What about you, my friend? What do you believe happened? Finally, I'd like to leave you with this. Did you know that this channel is watched by over 2 million people from around the world every month? Yet, 60% of them aren't subscribed. Just hitting the like and subscribe button helps support this channel more than you know. If you haven't, please consider subscribing now. Thanks so much, my friends, and I'll see you on the next episode with more true stories from Appalachia's past.